My name's David Gristwood. I'm an application architect with Microsoft, been there many years now. I've been spending my time on Windows Azure, so we've been spending our time with partners because this whole cloud thing is very interesting for them. They get what it's all about. They make money from basically software, so they're looking for things that will either cut their costs or open up new opportunities. And it's really been spending time with those early adopters, the people who look at it and go, Windows Azure, yeah, that makes sense, we could do something with that. And just helping them through those early stages, through the incubation, helping them take some of their ideas and translate them from ideas in their heads to the whiteboards, from whiteboards to architectural design to coding to actually deploying the application, actually getting their first customers on board. And this event today has been very much about taking those early adopters and giving them a chance to showcase what they're doing to an audience so that people go, well, we're not the only people looking at this. And it's a chance to network and share some experiences in being early adopters. In terms of public sector, one aspect is sector itself is always interesting because people like to network with other people and they want to know what's going on in their sector. There's also the fact that public sector comes with some very specific constraints and some very issues they have to deal with around things like data sovereignty, they have to deal with personal information, and therefore that brings with it some very special challenges. And therefore I think it's quite useful in that sector to find out how people are tackling this problem, what they're bringing to bear, and let them share ideas that you wouldn't have got, say, if we just make this a generic discussion about the cloud and at one stage had a bunch of startups and another bunch of consumer people. This is much more focused, and I think as a result, the people who've turned up have found it more useful because of that. How have we dealt with this? A lot of it's a feedback cycle. Although the technology under Windows Azure is very mature, it's been around for many years. Azure as an entity is still relatively new, a year and a half really, and then a year before in beta. It's still very much in that feedback loop. We have a whole list of things we'd still like to do. The product teams that are building this know what they need to be done. So connecting them up with people and people saying, if only we could do X or if only we could do Y, then we could move forward is fantastic feedback for us. And if we didn't hold these events, if we didn't go and talk to those people, we wouldn't get that sort of feedback. That's why it's important for us. Well, there's a great site, migrateWindowsAzureIdea.com. And when we launched Azure, we put that site up, and it's a chance for people to add new requests or look at the existing ones that have been put in and vote on it. And very quickly you see one of these peaks where a small number of requests get a lot of votes from people. And we use that as a design goal to go, right, we want to knock off the top 10 on this list over the next 6 to 12 months. And that's meant that we're not sitting around trying to work out what people want. We've got a really concrete list, and we can look at the topics that have been most voted for and say, well, we need to add this capability and we need to address this problem, and that's given us a really good focus. Well, what's interesting for us at the moment is the team inside Microsoft that are looking at Azure are an incubation team. We're relatively small by Microsoft standards, and that's because we're looking for those early adopters, and we're looking to go out and connect with people who recognize the value of, being a bit bleeding edge, taking a few risks, but getting the rewards back. And that's let us work much more informally. If we were to look at cloud 3 years, 5 years from now, it'll be much more commonplace. We won't be needing to do this role because people will be able to look around at thousands of companies worldwide building on Azure, and we'll be looking for the next wave of technology advances. Our focus in the short to medium term is to really ramp up the Azure business. We think it's really powerful. There's a lot of opportunity there. The feedback we've got, especially from the partner community, startups, people working in specific sectors, has been absolutely excellent. I think over the next year or so, you'll see enterprises start to look at it more. They tend to be slower because they're more cautious. They've got issues about physically where the data must reside, and these are things that we need to address. So I think we're going to be busy for the next couple of years on this one. So I think, because some people do like to be laggards, and there's some people who like to follow the mainstream, and that's absolutely fantastic. But I think if you've got an idea or you spot an opportunity, and being first there in the market puts you potentially in a very strong position, and one that's difficult to be wrestled away from, especially if you're continually innovating and upgrading and coming up with new ideas. If that isn't your model, and if the market isn't like that, perhaps the benefits are not so quick to come through. It is about cloud. It's about taking stuff that potentially once upon a time had to be on a server sitting in the corner of a room somewhere that would be expensive to manage. You'd probably forget to back it up. It would be something that you had to do but you didn't want to do, and push that up into one of our big data centers where we take over all the day-to-day running, the boring, mundane tasks, stuff like that. And it lets people who want to build software, and Azure is most interesting to people who want to build and design software. It's not something you'd pick up as a consumer and use, but rather it's something that people who build software can go, wow, this gets us back into the whole business of designing software and doing what we do, and not into the hosting business, which a lot of them we've seen have found themselves being dragged into, not because they want to, not because it's a profitable business, not because they want to be there, but it's simply they've had to do it in order to get their idea up and available for people to use. And we think, for those folks, it's really attractive proposition. It either A, opens up new competition opportunities, to grab new customers and do new things, or B, just simply cut their costs. That doesn't sound quite so exciting, but in the world of business, simply being able to lower your costs is a really big thing. One of the recent surveys talked about the fact inside big organizations, one IT professional can manage about, I think, 140 servers, whereas in our data center, because we put a lot of upfront investment into automating those tasks, one person can run thousands of servers, which gives us a good cost benefit, especially when you amortize that over thousands and thousands of servers. I've been at a couple of the events, and I think the chance, it's absolutely fantastic. I think what happens is that you're getting people, especially in a sector-specific event like today, they're seeing other people in their sector talk about what's going on. They're getting a glimpse of the future and where people who are building solutions are focusing their effort. And it gives them the chance in the breaks and stuff like that to do the all-important networking. The number of people who said, I need to go and talk to that person about this is absolutely fantastic. So I'm guessing from their perspective, seeing the people talk about what the current trends are and the chance to go and talk to them in an informal manner has got to be a really strong reason for being at these events.